delighted to speak to everyone today about the TCDSense project. So myself, I'm a senior occupational therapist within Trinity and lead on this TCDSense project, and Jessica K. Doyle is project officer. So we're representing numerous stakeholders, Declan included, numerous stakeholders have been involved in this project so far.
So the TCDSense project aims to make Trinity more inclusive by increasing sensory awareness and creating a variety of different sensory environments to meet the needs of all students and staff across campus, as well as delivering specialised supports for students and staff to manage and adapt the sensory environments of college to work best for their own sensory perception. The QR code here takes you to our link tree where you can find all the links to learn more about the work TCDSense is doing. We are all sensory beings, and although we may not always be fully aware of it, sensation is everywhere. We experience life through our senses. Everyone has a unique sensory system and ways of perceiving and processing sensation that can change depending on time, context, mood, energy levels, neurotype, and mechanisms of perception. When we are talking about the senses, we are talking about the 8 human senses, which include the 5 most common: auditory, visual, taste, smell, and touch. But then there is also the proprioception system, which is responsible for sensing position, location, and movement of the body muscles and joints. So maybe you find it easier to concentrate and learn when you are sitting at a desk, or maybe you like to be standing while working or have a meeting while going for a walk. Then there's the vestibular system, which senses our balance and orientation of our head and movement. So maybe you find that the only way you can study is when you're sitting on a solid, firm chair. Or maybe you can study much better when in a swing or sitting on a chair which has wheels. And then interception, the messenger sense, which is responsible for communicating what is going on inside our bodies, detecting bodily sensations such as hunger, tiredness, and emotional states. So maybe you regularly forget to eat or drink during long study sessions or work sessions, or maybe it only happens at exam times or when approaching a deadline, when you are already feeling stressed and you find yourself getting a headache or grumpy, but you find it hard to detect why that is. So creating an inclusive campus from a sensory processing perspective involves looking at all spaces where students and staff study and work and engage in college life, and to build sensory awareness so that everyone can think sensory. So the next slide. So in May 2019, 150 students registered with the Disability Service in TCD completed a survey about their sensory experiences in college, in the college learning spaces. Results found that 68% reported that there is no quiet space on campus that they can access easily if they're feeling overwhelmed. Over 50% commented that they go home or leave campus if feeling overwhelmed. 93% would use a quiet space if it was available in the library, and 41% reported difficulty with acoustics in lectures. Further analysis has also been conducted on the qualitative responses from this survey to understand the sensory experience in more nuanced details.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the whole TCDSense project was structured. So it was based upon the survey that Jessica just referenced there, but also audits carried out with the library within Trinity and with the science faculty on their spaces from a sensory perspective. This audit led to us developing a working group and then applying to the HEA as a strategic initiative to start developing the project. We set it up as being across 4 interconnected strands, as you can see in the slide here. So strand 1 was all about the individual approaches. So as Jessica said, everyone is different, has a different sensory preference profile. So what we do from a disability service and an occupational therapy service individually. Secondly, strand 2 is about the college environment. And that involved physical spaces across libraries, student spaces, individual spaces, outdoor spaces, which I'll come back to in a little bit. Strand 3 was all about awareness and training. So through social media campaigns across the whole student and staff community within Trinity, then also training through workshops around sensory and helping people to understand themselves and the sensory environment. And strand 4 was all about the research to underpin it. which Jessica's has had a lot to do with there. So just a couple of things to speak about within the project we've done so far. So on the left-hand side, see big high-back enclosed chairs within the library, trying to create little pockets of space. And the library have been wonderful collaborators through this whole project. A couple of things that we tied in here were trying to create some visual enclosure, but also connection to nature was something that students highlighted as being key within a learning space. So we positioned these chairs beside the windows in the library. In the top right, you see an individual sensory space, which allows students to create the space exactly as they would want it. So there's rocking chairs, bean bags, different levels of lighting, which students can control. So the whole idea behind all of this is based upon inclusion, about trying to help change the environment to meet everyone's different sensory preferences and profile, about empowerment and flexibility, and really trying to help people to understand themselves and the environment. In the bottom right, very much around inclusion. Rather than separate spaces, it was very much looking at student spaces that were being developed and how we could make them more inclusive from a sensory perspective. So you can see there were certain levels of enclosure from the furniture, but also different rooms set up within the student space. Some other areas where I suppose thinking about this empowerment is the sensory map we're now developing of all of Trinity campuses to try to give students a view of what, from sensory perspective, what different places within Trinity give them, to allow them to again, match their own preference. Sensory awareness I've spoken about through our social media campaigns, which Jessica Kay leads on. Our one-to-one OT and needs assessment approach, how we discuss sensory with all students that we meet with, and then go into a more refined specific OT approach. Sensory environment evaluation tool is a really exciting collaboration with Technological University Dublin to develop an online tool for students to evaluate their own sensory environments within college. And then finally, the research that we really want to underpin everything that we're doing. So we're speaking here today, and then some papers as well. So just to finish, I suppose the main message and why we're delighted to do a lightning talk today is collaboration has been so wonderful throughout the whole project. We've had such wonderful connections across so many stakeholders within Trinity and outside. So we'd love anybody to reach out to us, ask any questions, discuss anything, give us ideas. We'd love it. So please, this is all of our social media. You can reach out to us here or follow what we're doing here, but then also reach out to any of us directly either. So thank you.
And thank you very much. I nearly had to use my turkey there. I nearly, he was coming in. Really, really interesting project. I'm particularly interested in how the broader student population has embraced the whole experience and what sort of feedback you've had from them.
It's been great because I suppose we've partnered, and one of the key partners was the Students' Union. So in developing all of these spaces, it's been very much pitched to be for all students, not for disabled students, not for any particular groups of students. It's to be for all students, that everybody has different preferences. Everyone has a different way of learning and place that they like to learn it. And we feel this resonates with people really, really well. And that whole sense of trying to create student spaces that are for everybody and library spaces that are for everybody rather than separate spaces has really, really been a positive thing for students.
I think it's a key component of student success. Sorry, Jessica, what you want to say?
I think some people find it really interesting that they work in different ways that they never thought was sensory, but then they learn more about sensory and they realize that a lot of what they do is through sensory.
Yeah. We have a question in the question here. It says, did you find that students had any competing sensory needs that made it difficult to design spaces?
Yes, they do. And I suppose a common one I would talk about is the entrance to the arts building. You walk in there, there's from a visual perspective, a movement perspective, sound, smell, you get hit with all of the senses within that space. So I suppose in designing spaces, we tried again to offer as much flexibility as possible. So some spaces that have use pods to get reduced visual distraction, but really nice natural light. Others that are very quiet, others that have a lot of movement, a lot of color, a lot of noise. So we've tried as much as possible to create this flexible array of spaces rather than trying to divine what people want or what people need from a sensory perspective and design that everywhere. It's trying to be as flexible as possible.
I think also the I can't think of the word. The element of control is important too, that like having things that can be changed. So lighting that can be set by people, so that some people might want different colors of light or different amounts of light or natural light, and that it's not all just reduce, but getting the balance.
Okay, and I have another question. Fantastic project. Have you had further collaboration with the other educational bodies, the further ed third level, or any ongoing forums for learners to add to as needs may change or evolve?
In terms of, well, I suppose primary collaboration has been with Technological University Dublin through the personal sensory evaluation tool, but we're really happy to connect with anybody. We've had other institutions come in to look at the spaces, and I suppose this is now, I think I'm doing my 4th tour. Was supposed to do it this week, but plenty of people are coming in to have a look at spaces and even discuss what we did and how we did it. We're not trying to say exactly what we did was exactly right for everybody, but it certainly introduces a couple of nice ideas that people can take away and start to apply.